Hey guys, I am very happy to announce that the audiobook for my first novel, Blood of One's Blood, is now available on my website. And to accompany this announcement, I am posting here the first 3 chapters of the book as a sample for you guys. If you like what you hear, head on over to my website, savagebooks.net, to purchase access to a download link for the full audiobook. This has been a long time in the making, and while I know that a lot of you wanted me to do the audiobook, that just wasn't in the cards this time. However, I hired a professional voice actor that I think y'all will really enjoy to do the full book, so don't have any worry there. And yes, for my future audiobooks, you all have convinced me I'll be doing them myself. Full recording. Thank you all so much for sticking with me for the last 6 years and supporting every step of the way, especially for the journey of these books over the last 10 months or so. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the first 3 chapters of my first fantasy epic, Blood of One's Blood.
Blood of One's Blood. Chapter 1. Eastern Ocean, Year 410 ITA. It is written that the Eastern Ocean extends for forever and a half. It is also written that winged sharks, fallen cities, and merling folk reside beneath its salty waters. We scholars, here in the Loctarium, fear the former far more than the latter. Loctarium Garrett Riger. They would eat them whole? Rhaegon asked to his slave, hand covering his mouth to stall imaginary vomit. And alive? Alive and squirming, master, said Loyal with a grin. The bigger the better, too, dipped in vinegar and sprinkled with salt. Termite queens? Rhaegon asked in disbelief. Loyal nodded. Termite queens, master. Rhaegon hurled a glob of spit into the sea below him. His treacherous mind became curious as to what exactly termite queens would taste like, so it shoved its closest ideal into his mouth. Damn, that's foul! I hate bugs! Rhaegon turned to a bald slave woman on the ship's deck. I lost again. Pour me another, woman. I think Loyal wants to hear my liver scream. Yes, master. She came to his side and filled his wine cup for the 6th time, her eyes never daring to meet his. Rhaegon turned the cup's bottom toward the starry night, grateful that the Tilla-Radoshi wine drowned the termites on his tongue. It was sweet and strong, like a poetic mercenary. Rhaegon pointed a finger at his slave. Loyal, I think I finally have one that can beat you. By all means, master. Let this story loose. Loyal looked down at his own wine cup, which was really just a cup, for no wine had filled it all night. I am certain it will have a greater effect than the other 6. The Vocule assure me of it, Loyal, and the gods do not lie. Cruel, yes. Liars, no. You will surely put me to shame, master, said Loyal with his same grin. Please, let us hear. Prepare yourself to retch. Kolgara and I got it in our minds to hunt tigers one day, so we traveled to the Hasiru. Tar and Gizan wanted to host us under his roof, but I had no wish to live posh and pampered. I have my own castle for that. So Kolgara and I stayed in this little village in the Hasiru called Roti. The people lived in huts. There was mud everywhere, and the air either smelled of cow shit and horse piss, or horse shit and cow piss. It becomes a bit hard to tell at a certain point. Anyway, we arrived after sundown, and the Rotka in the village wanted to throw a feast in our honor. You know as well as I that Kolgara is never one to turn down food, so we accepted. For the little they possessed, it was all quite good. They gave us chicken, curry, spinach, everything that they had. We ate it all, too, but the dessert is what killed us. They brought out a plate of naan for us both, served with a cup of fucking leopard's blood to its side. The Rodka said that if we drank the cup of blood without eating any of the naan, all the leopard's secrets would be revealed to us, and our hunt would be assured. Loyal shook his head. Master, do not tell me. Of course I did, Loyal. I wanted a damn leopard pelt. And this wasn't a small cup. They must have drained the whole fucking beast and gave it to me and Kolgara. You know how blood on the tongue tastes like iron a bit. Well, a cup's worth is like trying to eat a sword. A slimy, gloppy, warm... That's quite enough, Master, said Loyal, his hand pressed to the mouth of his queasy face. I got you. I fucking got you. Someone get this bastard some wine. He needs to catch up to me. Regan threw his cup into the ocean. I am drunk enough as it is. No need for any more of that. The bald slave woman came forward again. Yes, master? She poured the golden drink into Loyal's cup. She stared at him with so much jealousy. Rhaegon thought her white skin might turn green. Woman, have you tasted wine before? Rhaegon asked. No, master, she said, talking to his feet. Never. Would you like some now? Even with her face turned down, Rhaegon saw the surprise in her. Yes, master, if it pleases you. With how this brew tastes, it will please you and me both. He gave her a smile, then looked out onto the deck of the ship. Any Munda on this ship can help themselves to as much of the wine stores as they please, he yelled out. Everyone should know some pleasure in their life, Rhaegon thought, especially these slaves in their last hours. The woman in front of him fell to her knees. Thank you, master. May the Voku'ul bless you 1,000 times and 1,000 times more. Stand up, woman, he said, tapping her on the shoulder. That mouth should be drinking, not praising. I do not deserve it anyway. Yes, master. She rose and followed the other slaves below the deck to where the wine was kept. The Voku'ul smile on charity, master, said Loyal as he finished his wine. That was a virtuous act. Tiovu, Rhaegon said slowly. What was that, master? No master now, Loyal. Call me Tiovu, please. As you wish, Tiovu. Out on these waters on the wavy body of the ocean, he did not need to be Rhaegon. This was the sea's kingdom, which the moon and tides had rule over. He was merely a visitor, a peasant, subject to their will. Something so much smaller than the title name Rhaegon would allow. His birth name of Tiovu would suffice just fine. How do you deal with it, Loyal? Knowing that death is coming, always waiting, just around the corner? The wine had swung his mood like a headsman's axe. I've had many years to prepare myself, Tiovu. At some time or another it came to me so simply. My death is already decided. No matter how long I may live, no matter how I may fight, I will die one day. But my life is beautifully ambiguous, and it is under my control. Life and death are married, Tiovu. I will spend my time rejoicing that thorns are graced by roses, not lamenting that roses are uglied with thorns. Tiovu looked out into the stillness of the ocean. He could see the shadows of land off in the distance. His land, though, for only a while longer. But what happens when the other lives depend on you? What happens when you are looked at more as a god than a man? What happens when the path you've chosen to lead others down is wrong? Then you stare your mistakes in the eye and right them. They may bloody you, they may even kill you, but no one can stand in the place of your own wrongdoing. Tiovu looked into Loyal's bright grey-white eyes, nearly shimmering like the stars above him. They forced a smile on his face. This slave is a better man than I will ever be. What has made you so fucking wise? He gave Loyal a shove on the shoulder, almost sending him over the edge of the ship. Unending years of slavery often puts things into perspective, Loyal said with a smirk. To slaves, then, said Tiovu, raising his cup for a toast, too drunk to care that his cup was a hand shaped to be holding a cup. To slaves, Loyal brought up his cup and rocked it against his master's hand. There was no wine for either of them to drink, so they stood quietly, choosing to revel in the starry sky, the calm water, and each other instead. Chapter 2. City of Arca, Rhaegel. Rhaegon watched the letter burn in the fireplace. He had kept it with him since it came, reading it over 100 times, and now, as it turned to ash and smoke, he would be the only one to ever read it. He was too tired to heed its words. It called him to action, but a decade of conflict had turned him deaf. He wanted rest now. He wanted peace. At least for a few days. Rhaegon walked from the fireplace to the crib, not far from it. The babe inside did not seem to sleep well away from its light. "What shall I name you?" Rhaegon whispered, looking down at his son wrapped in blankets, fast asleep. "Or does it even matter?" He caressed his fingers on the babe's soft brown cheek. "Rhaegon, come to bed," called his wife from the next room. "The sheets are so cold without you." In the last few days, she finally sounded happy again. She had a steel spirit that recovered quickly. "Coming, Nevena." Before Rhaegon left, he prayed to the Voku'ul to lay protection over his son. If he could not assure the babe's safety, perhaps the gods could. Rhaegon went into his bedroom and hopped onto the mattress, wrapping his wife up in his arms. "My brave warrior looks so tired," she said, in her sleeping gown. "Does he need a kiss to renew his strength?" "A kiss would be nice," he said with a devil's smile. "But perhaps trying one of the things from our wedding night would be even better." Nevena raised an eyebrow. "I should be locked up and lashed for the things you talked me into that night." Rhaegon lifted his own brow. "If I remember correctly, that's the very thing we did." She grabbed him by the crotch and clenched down like a crab. "Remind me," she smiled. "Was this one of those things from our wedding night too?" "Your nails are so sharp!" Rhaegon screamed, paralyzed from pain. "Oh, is that blood I feel? I don't recall blood play in our first night, or do I not remember correctly?" "No, your memory is fine." Such a joy to hear. She relinquished his sensitives with a giggle. "I think you might have broken skin," Rhaegon said, patting himself down to make sure. "Could I have a kiss to ease my pain?" I suppose you have earned it." Nevena placed her lips on him. They were smooth and glossed, tasting of sugar and cherries. "It's not my mouth that you put in pain," Rhaegon said with a fox's slyness. "But it is my mouth that is tired, so we will use yours instead." She pulled his arms around her, moving close to his chest. "Well, if it's my tongue you want, I can't do any good from this angle. Perhaps if you move your waist closer, I can—" "To talk, Rhaegon," sighed Nevena. "We will use your mouth to talk. Fuck, it's like all you think of is war and sex." He pulled the blankets over the both of them. "Is there anything else that matters?" "I'd trade all the cock in the world for a lifetime of delicious food and a nice bed to sleep in." Rhaegon laughed. "You've had a lifetime of delicious food, and you're resting in bed right now." "Well, your voice comes in a distant third on that list, so it seems I will indulge in that next." "Fine," said Rhaegon, rolling his eyes. "What do you wish I speak on?" "What the fuck else do you think I want to know about, Rhaegon? Is the war truly coming to a close? Will it be over soon?" His heart fluttered at her asking. Had Nevena's eyes not been focused on his chest, she would have seen the worry in his gaze. Yes, Rhaegon said, it was the truth, not just the one she was speaking of. "I knew we would best those cowardly northerners. The Voku'ul would not let their evils go unpunished." "Yes," he said softly, "the Voku'ul vanquish the wicked and craven." She looked up to him, laying a hand on his cheek. "Something troubles you, love. What is it?" He parted his mouth, and his awful truth almost poured forth. He couldn't tell her. He couldn't tell anyone. He was so tired, and there was no hope anyway. Telling wouldn't change their fate. Like Loyal said on the ship, their deaths were already decided. It is nothing, Nevena. War is simply exhausting. Do not lie to me, Regan Regel. You might have been able to get away with that shit 20 years ago when I was young and dumb, but not now. Tell your wife what is wrong. I am here for you. Regan ran his hand through her black hair. I have to tell her something. When I think of all that we have lost, I doubt my worthiness to lead. Colgara and Saijon are dead because of me, Nevena. They died fighting my battles. I have stripped fathers from their children, brothers from their— The Hagas have done all that, she yelled, pulling him up to sit up in the bed. The Hagas started this war when they shat on our alliance. The Hagas led the Northerners to our soil. You, Saijon, Colgara, and all the rest have given everything to fend them off, and now we have won with blood and steel. Regan grabbed his wife by the face and kissed her long. I need you to promise me, if the Voka will see fit to take me before you or our child, protect him with all your life. I won't let a damn mosquito land on him, Nevena said with a smile. But you will not die for years to come. I won't allow it. You and I will raise this child into the greatest man the world has ever known. He grabbed her tight and laid back down with her. You're far too good for me, Nevena. Tell me something new. Regan held his wife until she fell asleep in his arms. She was too precious to let go of. 2 dimples on her face, 272 eyelashes, 913 breaths so far. He marked everything about her, ate up every detail. It was not until you may never see someone again that you fully appreciate the majesty of their being. Chapter 3. City of Arca, Regel. Regan stared out onto his burning city from the balcony of his castle. He could almost feel the flames from where he was. The screams certainly reached him. They seemed to never stop, coming from the old and young, the men and women, even the cattle and hounds. Everything was being put to the sword. All things were given up to flame. Is this how you pictured your war ending? Said the hard voice of Carver Hager. The old man stood beside Regan, watching it all with him. Is this the glory you saw when you killed my son-in-law? The invaders scoured Arca like black beetles cleaning a carcass, clad in dark armor like the night they came under. Regan knew he should have been out there in the streets, stomping them underfoot like a true warrior. But he was so exhausted. The swarm pushed towards the bay where the escape ships rested. They surely meant to burn them. You will answer me, Regan, said Carver Hager. Speak to me like the powerful and just emperor your people believed you to be. Where is the golden sword? The oracles had assured Regan that success was his. At the start of the war, all those years ago, they proclaimed that the golden sword would sweep across the land with bloody eyes to right the wrongs done against the eastern people. The oracles saw it in their visions, shouted it from the mountain tops out to the heavens. Regan was the sword of the empire, with hair dyed in gold, the youthful, crimson-eyed champion the fates foretold, and look at all the good it had done him. He watched as his capital city followed the rest of his empire into ruin. I will ask but once more, said Carver. Where are my arcana? Where are you hiding my weapons? Return what you stole, and I will let you live out your days as a servant to my house. There wasn't anger or bravado in Carver's words, just a detestable straightforwardness, as if he was speaking over a summer's table of bread and wine. Follow me, Regan finally said. Carver's neck was screaming to be stabbed, and Regan was quick enough to do it. but the old man's blood wouldn't change anything. The troops that Carver Hager brought parted ways so Regan could pass. They infested his castle in every room, staring cold hatred at the Emperor as he walked by. Regan made his way down staircases and corridors, through halls and walkways, all emblazoned with dripping crimson. He stepped over the corpses of fallen allies as he made his exit. Men sworn to the city guard, defenders who had no chance against this invasion. When Regan reached the gate of his castle, he could see Lake Loss off in the distance and all the burning ships on its waters.
"A pity it all was,"
said Carver, coming up beside.
"Your people ran to those ships with such vigor, pushing and trampling each other like animals. When we torched the vessels, they threw themselves into the water to escape the blaze. The poor fools were too frenzied to even swim. It was a waste of good arrows after that."
Regan scanned the waters for his personal ship. His wife was meant to take it and escape onto the ocean the lake connected to. As hard as he searched, he could not find it. Was it sunken like the others, or did his family flee to safety?
"Keep moving,"
Carver said with a push. It seemed that the Emperor would never know. The night sky was alive with the waving light of flames, painted in orange hellfire, streaked with plumes of smoke. Ash and soot rode on winds carrying the stench of charred flesh, punishing Regan with their sickening caresses. Carver and his many hundred troops followed Regan past mounds of dead bodies. Those unlucky enough to just be injured called out for the release of death. The invaders cared not. They were hard set on their travel. Regan finally came to a halt, stopping on the top of a large hill with a plaza made from black bricks inlaid with gold. This is the end. Carver had his troops to his left and right.
"So is this it, then? The armory?"
They had not followed Regan into the plaza fully, standing 20 feet back. "No, Hager, no, it is not." The hill plaza with its long view of the eastern ocean had 2 statues on its edge. It was Regan and Nevena, immortalized in stone, looking into each other's eyes. Loyal had carved them as a wedding gift.
"I wanted to see her one last time," Regan said. "I did not sail across the sea to play games, thief,"
said Carver.
"I have shown you mercy on this day. If you want to keep your life, lead us to what is mine."
Regan stared at the stone Nevena. Loyal had certainly done a good job. Blood and steel, he heard in her voice. It was as if she was standing there herself, giving him strength, stealing away his ache. Stare your mistakes in the eye and right them. Now Loyal was in his mind. As far away as both were, they would not leave him. Regan turned to face the army.
"I have already lost my life today, Hagar. It is not yours to give."
Carver seemed to shed his straightforwardness for disappointment.
"So you will deny me my arcana?" "No, you will have them all."
Regan stretched his arms out to the side and widened his palms. Flickers and sparks of light shot from his open hands, multiplying from one another until they coalesced into twin swords. The metal of the weapons had a tint of crimson, and the hilts beheld red jewels. He swung the arcana down, hitting their edges on the ground, and the swords became coated in flame.
"You would choose death over life?"
asked Carver. "Are you death, Hager?" Carver raised his hand, and his troops moved out in front of him.
"I am the only death you will ever know."
The invaders knocked their arrows, ready to rain down fury on the Emperor. Before they could, Carver Hager called out to them, "Archers, stow! You will fight this man with blades alone. I need him alive for as long as can be managed." The swarm slung their swords from their scabbards, bearing their fangs of steel.
"Regan the Regretful has soaked himself in the blood of your brothers,"
yelled Carver to his men. He killed your prince with poison, killed 2 of your emperors with his own blades. Who here wants his blood for themselves?" The host's shout likened an applause of thunderclaps. They banged their swords against their shields, raving like demons against the backdrop of Rhaegon's hell-soaked city. "May the Voku'ul guide my body and clear my mind," Rhaegon prayed, "and may my wife and children forgive me for my sins." The Emperor knew there was not hope to prevail in this fight, but he did not battle for victory or even his own life. He fought for redemption. Carver Hager flicked his wrist and 10 men ran headlong at Rhaegon. He met their charge with a raging inferno. With each swing of his fiery arcana, he sent swaths of blue and orange heat out. Men fell screaming, burning in their black armor, writhing about in pain. And whatever Rhaegon didn't set ablaze, he cut to bits, armor and flesh alike. Their wails did not bother him. Rhaegon had been killing since he was old enough to know there was life to take. Only moments after the Northerners charged, they were corpses alight like matches. Rhaegon stood in their center, not a single scratch on him. "Again!" Carver Hager yelled, lifting his hand toward Rhaegon once more. Twice as many men ran down to kill the Emperor. They rushed past their fallen brothers, leaping over their burned bodies as if they were stones, the chargers' tongues armed with war cries. Rhaegon knew that these Northerners would crawl over a sea of their lifeless allies if it saw his death. A lone warrior would have cowered at such a charge too, but Rhaegon was not alone at all. The Voku'ul spoke warnings to him, his gods protecting him from harm. Behind, swing, block. Swords whizzed by his face, grazed his legs, slashed the hair from his arms, but never found their true mark. He heard the Voku'ul clear in his mind, the loudest of all being his guardian wraith. He used their guidance to open men up from navel to nose, to lop off their limbs and slice free their skulls. Again he stood alone in a field of fallen foes. However, this time was different from the last. The nicks and cuts he received from his enemies burned like the fiery streets of his city, then became frigid to burn as if his blood was iced over. And then he felt his flaming arcana grow heavy. Their fire slowly dimmed until going dormant altogether. What has become of my arcana? Another group of invaders rushed at him, larger than the last. There was no time to think. He had to act. Rhaegon clapped his hands together, bringing forth flickers of light between them. Once again, the streaks multiplied and took on the form of a sword, firmly resting in his grip. This summoning brought forth a single silver broadsword with a jagged, glowing yellow gem in its guard. It pulsed with electricity. Still, the troops charged like madmen, as if numb to fear and pain alike. Forks of lightning jumped from Rhaegon's sword, stabbing through the Northerners' armor, causing them to seize and shake. Rhaegon slashed at his foes, sending sparks to flicker in the sky, spilling bowels to the ground, ripping faces clean in two. The air became thick with blood, ash, and screams. Though the third charge fared no better than the others, they had done their task in wounding him. Rhaegon saw the energy leave his sword, and he relinquished it to the ground. "The swords," he heard his wraith whisper in his mind. "They're swords of blood and darkness." Rhaegon brought his eyes to the weapons his enemies wielded. They were swords with crystals of crimson and black in their guards, looking devilish in their gleaming. He recognized these as arcana, though different from his own. "Don't let them cut you," the Voku'ul said. And then Rhaegon knew he was being drained, whether it be scratches or deep stabs. When the blades of red-black crystals struck him, his arcana would lose their might and go dormant. Carver Hager held his fist up for his men to stop the charge. "Give me what is mine, exile! Give me the golden sword, or I will take it!" He meant to rip Rhaegon's arsenal away one at a time, charge after charge. Regan summoned a battle axe for an answer. He knew the enemy's plan. He knew what they wanted. He could give up the fight any moment and keep his prized weapons out of Carver's greedy hands. But that would not be his people's way. That would not be a warrior's death.
And there is still one life I need to take.
The old northerner sent forth his troops again. Dozens of men attacked and were slain like those before. And just like before, Regan lost his arcana. Every assault pushed him closer to the grave, inch by inch. His scratches turned to gashes, his pricks became deep slits, and his breath weighed tons. Try as he might, he was but a single man. After killing the last of another onslaught, Regan dropped to his knees. He looked up at the enemy that stood before him. There were still thousands snaking down the hill and off into the distance, all wanting his head and the glory that came with it.
He would not enter the grave empty-handed.
Regan looked to Carver. He would have his life.
Fight me, like I know you can.
His words were limping from exhaustion.
Draw your blade, Hagar.
Carver raised his fist once more.
Give me what is mine. Draw your blade, and I will keep my promise. You will have it all.
Carver Hagar unsheathed a sword, ebony all across the steel, ordained with a huge crimson and black crystal.
It would be lies to say I wanted this to end any other way.
He ran towards the Emperor, and the entirety of his host followed. Regan put his fists on top of each other, forcing light to come forth and swirl in the air. Where the brightness of his previous arcana were flicks and sparks, this was gushing and viscous, almost a physical shining. The wind sprinted in circles, whipping up bloodied gravel and dried leaves. The blinding light grew long and slendered itself into the shape of a sword, repulsing with a bang. A steaming, gleaming blade rested in the Emperor's hands. Gold symbols of long-dead language ordained the regal steel and led to a massive golden crystal embedded in the guard. The blade's edges hummed with power and radiated brilliant golden light.
"Indulge your eyes, soldiers!"
shouted Carver Hagar, running.
"There is Reyes, the golden sword, the king of Arcana. Let us rip it from his corpse."
Regan swung the mighty blade at the invaders, breaking through swords as if they weren't there, sliding through armor like cloth. But the fodder was not Regan's concern. He slashed a path open to Carver Hagar. When they met, they locked swords, and the hate that they felt for each other clashed, turning the air stale. Regan swung hard against Carver's black blade, but it would not break like the other armaments. If only this had been a duel and not a war. There was an army of men around Regan, and he could not defend against them all. They stabbed and slashed him while his mind was focused on Carver, and that was when he knew. Nothing else mattered now. He was as good as dead. Carver Hagar became his whole world, the focus of Regan's existence.
He saw Carver rear his blade back,
but he did not fear pain any more. The Northerner's black sword sunk deep into the Emperor's gut, and that was where it stayed. Regan held the sword in his side so Carver Hagar could not defend, and drove his golden blade straight down into the old man's head. Blood spilled out of Carver's mouth as his eyes went lazy and his body went limp. It is done. Satisfaction embraced Regan's heart with a firm hold, but then it was pushed out by
Vemis swords.
He held his arcana with an ever-loosening grip. He could feel it growing heavy in his palm. With the last bit of will and strength he had, he cloaked the golden blade in light, sending it back to only where he knew it to be, vanishing it from the battlefield. He fell to the ground, and with his face on the bloody bricks, Regan gazed at his city, still ablaze. A blade pushed into his back, blacking his vision. He felt the heat of the fires until a blade numbed him. He heard the screams of his people. Another blade robbed him of sound, but he had done his duty and atoned for his sins the best he could. He handed over his life, covered in steel and blood. His last moments were spent as a man his wife and children could be proud of, and now his life was no longer his. Sleep, blood of once blood. He heard his gods whisper in his ear, sleep, to rise again. He was all too eager to listen. The genocide ended with him.